Sky, aka Sugar Rankin. Basically just on the live, about to listen to a little bit of this whole Puffy thing, about to see what's going on with the updates. Give y'all a little update. We're listening to the Law and Crime channel, so y'all check Law and Crime, man. Get them, they just do deals, so I won't have to goddamn put hands on nobody, no goddamn body. But yeah, we gonna listen to what Law and Crime got to say about this new Diddy thing.
Music mogul Sean Combs. Mostly known as Diddy, Combs has been hit with two more lawsuits, these filed in New York and California. This time, the self-proclaimed bad boy is being accused of sexual violence, intimidation, and coercion by two separate women in two different decades. I'll explain. For Law and Crime News, I'm Kennedy Walker. Two women, both filing under the alias Jane Doe, have come forward with shocking allegations, painting a disturbing portrait of a man who, for decades, they say, used his wealth, power, and influence to prey on the vulnerable. Diddy, however, continues to maintain his innocence and denies any wrongdoing. The first lawsuit dates back to 2002. According to the lawsuit, Jane Doe was out with friends in the early morning hours near Times Square in New York City. While walking to her train stop to go home, a black SUV approached her. Inside were two young women who, according to the complaint, told her they could get her into an exclusive party hosted by Sean Combs. Jane Doe claims she was flattered and intrigued, so she accepted the invitation. The lawsuit states that the SUV took Jane Doe to an upscale hotel near Times Square, where she was escorted past the lobby and up to a suite. Once inside, she was allegedly.
Hey, to y'all young girls out here, hold on, let me stop.
He was welcoming guests and introducing himself as the host of the.
So y'all young girls out here. And I come from a different age where, people used to pull up at the school, like the older dudes, like how they used to say R. Kelly used to do, he used to pull up on the young girls and all that. But y'all young girls, man, y'all be careful who y'all are running into. Young boys too, especially in Atlanta. Y'all be careful who y'all running into, cause it's a lot of weird activity out here, and I don't want nobody to get hurt. I don't want nobody to go missing. I just want everybody to be in a peaceful, safe space. So younger people, men, women, teenagers, even younger than that, preteens, y'all be careful when these folks is coming up here and asking y'all to Lily, hello. Hey, what's up, Lily? Yeah, I'm trying to tell these folks about.
Pre-mixed drinks, and that she was never allowed.
Hold on, I'm gonna cut it up so you can hear.
Tray, they were instead handed to her. Shortly after consuming the drinks, Jane Doe says she began to feel dizzy and disoriented. So she told the women who brought her that she needed to sit down. Instead, she claims she was led into another room in the suite she hadn't seen yet. Jane Doe alleges that the room was filled with people engaging in sexual activity.
Oh yeah, let me close it right quick.
Surrounded by men in all black clothing, whom she believed were his bodyguards. Her top and fondled her breast. They exposed themselves and allegedly attempted to force her to touch their genitals. She says she protested, but was unable to fight back because the drinks had taken full effect, making her body sluggish and unresponsive. Doe claims it was only when she managed to loudly say no that the assault stopped and the men shifted their focus to the other women in the room. She tried to leave, but the lawsuit states before she was allowed to go, the men demanded to see her ID. After taking a picture of it, they reportedly told them to leave. Jane Doe says she refused. She says she made her way to the hotel as quickly as possible, and she never reported the incident, fearing retaliation from a man as powerful as Sean Combs. Now let's fast forward to 2016. Another Jane Doe.
So this is maybe a decade. No, 2 decades ago. Might have been 2 decades. Because they talking about the next one now. So this is the next one, y'all. They talking about the second one they talking about.
Another horrific accusation. The second lawsuit, filed in California, tells a similarly disturbing story, this time at a Hollywood nightclub nearly 14 years later. According to the complaint, Jane Doe was celebrating her 20th birthday at Club Playhouse in Los Angeles.
So it seems like everywhere Puffy go or throw a party, somebody is getting accosted. We can use those type of words on YouTube.
When Sean Combs approached her with several of his associates. She says at first she felt excited, flattered even, to be noticed by one of the biggest names in the industry. The lawsuit alleges that Combs offered her a drink, and when she declined, his mood shifted. Combs allegedly told Jane Doe, quote, "I am not asking you. Drink that and shut the up."
Wow.
What happens next, she claims, was sudden and violent. The lawsuit states that Combs placed his right arm around her in a side hug.
So Diddy is violent, bro. This is a violent man right here, bro. This is a violent homosexual we have here. He's a violent homosexual. Lord have mercy, Jesus. He telling people to drink it and shut the F up. Bill Cosby ain't even do that shit.
With his left hand, and he shoved it up her skirt and forcefully her with his fingers.
Oh my
He allegedly
God.
leaned in and whispered, quote, "I do what I want. Take that." Throughout the alleged assault, Jane Doe says she could hear Combs' associates laughing.
Bro, this sounds like a damn Diddy song. Take that, take that. This shit ain't even, bro. This man is sick, bro. This dude. But I'm gonna tell y'all one thing. This one thing I will say, y'all. This one thing I will say. Diddy messed himself up because this is the reason why I'm saying this. Diddy messed himself up because I don't know how that tape of him and Cassie got out, but first he said he didn't have anything to do with any kind of malicious things that happened to Cassie. So he was calling her a liar. Then when the tape came out, man had to pay her overnight. Overnight. Lily, you see what's going on here? You see what's going on? Like,
in the background, she claims she tried to push him off.
And another thing about that too, he will not be able to have a fair case. I don't care if they have the case in Africa. Diddy is not going to have a fair case because people already seen the tape of him beating on Cassie. He need to go to jail for that, definitely. But these other people packing on top of this, who's to say they're telling the truth or they're not? Look at what's going on.
But Combs allegedly just laughed until he eventually allowed her to leave. The lawsuit states Jane Doe then fled the nightclub and took a cab back to her hotel. By the time she arrived, she claims she was unable to stand without assistance and that hotel staff had to help her get to her room. Jane Doe says the next morning when she woke up, she found bruising and a tear in and around her genitals. Now, Diddy's attorneys deny all allegations, saying, quote, "No matter how many lawsuits are filed, especially by individuals who refuse to put their own names behind their claims, it won't change the fact that Mr. Combs has never sexually assaulted or sex trafficked anyone, man or woman, adult or minor. We live in a world where anyone can file a lawsuit for any reason. Fortunately, a fair and impartial judicial process exists to find the truth, and Mr. Combs is confident he will prevail in court."
So y'all get in the comment section, man. Do y'all think Diddy has a chance, any type of chance, of getting out of this, bro?
Lawsuits are just being
and it look like they able to. It look like Tony Busby is working now. I ain't gonna say Tony Busby no slouch because Tony Busby trying to do his thing. I don't know if bringing Jay-Z in it was a good idea, but hey, you know what I'm saying? He might know something we don't know, so that's probably why he brought that up. You know, that lawsuit with the girl that they say was kind of they said she was kind of off a little bit. Not off, she was autistic. So I don't want to, you know, God bless her soul.
In a growing list of allegations against Sean Combs. For years, rumors of abuse, coercion, and violence have followed him. And here to break this down with me is criminal defense attorney and legal expert Joe Tamburino. Joe, let's just dive right in, starting with the lawsuit from 2016. According to the lawsuit, Combs allegedly forced Jane Doe to drink an unknown substance after she declined. Could this be considered drugging under California law, and how would that impact the case?
Well, thanks for having me on, Kennedy. Yes, it could be considered that. But the problem with all drugging cases is this: how do you prove it? Because when you get a case where someone says, "I was drugged," someone slipped.
So that's another good thing that this analyst is saying. You could say you were drugged, bruh. You would have to have like basically concrete evidence that you were drugged. And if it's been 10 years or 20 years ago, it might be kind of hard to find those toxins in your body. So yeah, that's another one. So yeah, let's let the analyst finish what he got going on, y'all. Y'all hit the like button, y'all get up in
Some
here.
potion in my drink.
Hit the
Unless
like
you
button,
get
get the
that
likes
drink,
up.
unless you get something that can show that there was some illegal substance in your drink, it is so hard to prove. So yes, it could be considered that, but it's almost going to be impossible to prove in this case.
Now, Jane Doe describes, allegedly feeling dizzy, lightheaded, and unable to stand without support. If she was unknowingly drugged, how could that affect the burden of proof in this case? And I think you kind of touched on it already, that it's kind of hard if she hadn't reported it, right?
It is. It's very hard. Now, of course, Jane Doe, any plaintiff in any of these civil cases, and I think he's got about 10 against him already, any of these plaintiffs could get on the stand and say under oath, I felt that I was drugged. I had a drink. It was a vodka soda. I'm used to drinking vodka sodas, but all of a sudden, on my second drink, I felt completely woozy. I was disoriented. I didn't know what I was doing. I hardly could stand up. So they could testify to that. But in terms of hard evidence, maybe they saved that glass, if they ever did. So you could show that there was an illegal substance or some mind-altering substance in that glass. It becomes very difficult to prove.
Now, the lawsuit goes on to state that Combs' associates laughed during the assault, or, allegedly laughed. Could they face any legal consequences, even?
Now that's demonic. You see somebody doing something nefarious to a person, and you know that this person ain't even really, basically, even in their right mind because they're already been DURGED. So yeah.
If they didn't physically participate?
They could. They could be sued themselves. In terms of a criminal charge, I highly doubt it because so much time has passed by. Jane Doe in one case was from 2002. So that's 20.
So you got 2002. You got one from 2002. You got another from 2015. So these are older cases. One of them to 2015, that's 10 years old. And 2002, that's
3 years ago. I am certain that the statute of limitations on those criminal charges has already passed years ago. So yes, they could be in terms of a civil type of case in liability, but in a criminal, again, with the SOLs, the statute of limitation that's involved in these cases, I highly doubt there'd be a criminal charge against them.
Can you touch on more about what could they be sued for, if not criminally?
Yes. Well, whenever you get a criminal case, that's about the state saying you committed a crime. When you get a civil case, that's about an individual or individuals who become a plaintiff and say, you did a wrong against me. What could that wrong?
So what he's saying is very, very much so true. You can you could sue two types of ways, like criminally, or you can sue what is it called? Civilly. So when you do civil, basically you just trying to make sure that they have to pay for the wrong that they have done to you. But on top of all of this, man, this is exactly what happened with Cassie. Cassie she didn't sue Diddy in a criminal lawsuit. She sued him in a civil. And we all know what happened. Diddy basically had to pay overnight. It was probably one of the quickest times in history that a case has been settled. I'm sure some has been settled like that fast before, but like the ones that we know, I mean, she got I think she got like up to 30 million or something like that. Because that's what she was asking for in the beginning, 30 million. So let's finish watching this show.
Well, you stole money, you damaged my property, or you committed a tort, which is a personal type of offense against me. You assaulted me, you kicked me, you defamed me, you raped me. So that's the type of civil case that they would go after. And they would do it on what's called an aiding and abetting type of situation, meaning that they're saying, look, we're not
I
saying.
was just gonna say that aiding and abetting. That's like if my homeboy killed somebody and the police looking for him, and I know that the police looking for him, and I got him hiding at my house. That's aiding and abetting. A lot of people don't know that.
That Mr. Combs did all this himself. What we're saying is he had this entourage that helped him. And all of them in concert did this against me, the plaintiff.
Jane Doe also alleges that she suffered genital injuries consistent with sexual assault. What role would forensic or medical evidence play in proving her claims given the time that has passed?
Potentially, it could be a huge role, and here's why. If she, in fact, had some type of medical examination that was close in time to the alleged assault, that could be great evidence. Whenever you become a victim of an assault, whether it's physical or sexual, and you seek medical attention, if that's the case here, then those medical documents, the examination, test results, photographs, some type of documentation showing that this person received injuries, that could play huge, if in fact she has them.
Now, the lawsuit accuses Combs' businesses of fostering a culture of sexual misconduct. How difficult is it to hold corporations liable?
So before he even harp on this, I want to say something. She asked a good question. How liable are the businesses? Like, if you rented a hotel or you rented vans or vehicles or even an airplane to ship this person from this city to this city, and that's one of the reasons why Diddy is in a lot of trouble at this moment because that's where the federal stuff come in when you go from state to state with stuff like that. So yeah.
Cases like this.
Well, in many situations, it is difficult because the corporation is so huge. Like if you went after something like Google or Apple or Facebook, something like that, with who knows how many shareholders and boards of directors and everything along those lines. But in this case, it seems like the corporation is Mr. Combs himself. I'm not aware of any other shareholders. So he and his corporation would be one and the same. So it wouldn't be as difficult as, for an example, if you did sue some huge corporation like Google.
And the suit demands punitive damages. What factors would determine if a court awards them, and what kind of precedent exists for cases like this?
Well, I'll answer the last part first. There's plenty of precedent. Whenever you have someone who's acting in a situation where they know not only it's wrong, not only is it illegal, but they say, I'm going to do it anyway, you could go after punitive damages. And that's not a surprise in this type of a case. Whenever you have a situation where someone, according to the allegations in these lawsuits, is repeatedly doing these illegal acts, yes, you could go for punitive damages. And there are plenty of cases in the past that you could use as precedent.
Jane Doe did not immediately go to police. She says that in the lawsuit. How do courts typically handle delayed reporting in sexual assault cases, and could this weaken her case at all?
It's very difficult when you don't report a crime right away to prove that crime in court. And the more time that goes by, the harder it is. And here's why. When Jane Doe or any alleged victim of a sexual assault takes the stand, whether it's in court or you're under a deposition, meaning an under oath statement, you're going to have to explain, well, what was going on in the past 20 years? Why didn't you report it? And that many times will affect their credibility. So the longer time goes by, the harder it becomes for a victim of a sex crime to prove their case.
Combs has a history of lawsuits related to alleged sexual.
All right, y'all. So that's one lesson that is out here for females, male, anybody that's getting anything done to them, any kind of SAing. If you want to, get things, the ball moving faster, basically you got to come out and tell what happened, like, as soon as possible. If you don't do that, it lessens the chances that you will be able to be um, rewarded in court or get a guilty not plea but get a guilty or get a conviction on the things that definitely happened to you. So yeah, let's keep going, y'all.
Misconduct. He has denied any wrongdoings. Could this pattern be introduced in court or would it be considered prejudicial?
Many times, plaintiffs as well as prosecutors will try to admit past conduct in order to show a pattern of behavior. I'll give you a prime example. If you have someone who's charged with, say, a robbery, and the robbery in the case is a person who uses a certain type of Glock 9 and always wears a red bandana, and you're able to show that there were these other robberies that the defendant was never charged with, but they pretty much know it's him because in those cases, that same gun was used, that same bandana was seen. So they try to show that these other wrongs that happened in the past are relevant now.
If Combs settles out of court, would that be seen as an admission of guilt or just a legal strategy?
Hold on, let me let this call go through. Let me let this call go through. All right, y'all. Keep going, keep going. Ain't got too much longer, y'all.
Most of the
I ain't
time,
gonna hold
legal
y'all too long.
strategy. When you settle, so-called settle out of court, many times there are confidential agreements. So, and many times the defendant will not admit wrongdoing. That's quite common. So you could get a case, and this is totally hypothetical, but you could get a situation where Mr. Combs would settle these civil cases and have it be a confidential settlement with no admission of wrongdoing.
Okay, Joe, so let's move on to the situation that allegedly happened in the year 2002. And Jane Doe is suing Diddy for what she says happened more than 20 years ago. Jane Doe says she was taken to a party by two women and given pre-mixed drinks. She says this happened in New York City. Could that fall under sex trafficking laws, even if she wasn't moved across state lines?
Yes, depending on New York's laws. Most states have sex trafficking laws. And in a state law, whatever state there,
Okay, one thing I would like to say about what they just was talking about. I live in Atlanta. Atlanta is one of I think the number one place for SA trafficking. Atlanta is number one. Y'all can look it up for SA trafficking. So
it's in. You don't have to prove any crossing of state lines because the only time that really is an issue is when you have federal cases. Someone takes a woman in New York.
So you hear what he just said? That's a federal case. That's federal. You take somebody from one city to the next city and you doing some wild stuff with them, bro. You cross a straight line, boy. That's feds.
And brings them to Chicago in order to perform some type of sex acts. So that's quite different. But in a state case, sure, if you have evidence that any victim of a sexual act was brought to different locations, was going to be used as.
Hold on, y'all. Let me test something quick. Make sure I got now. Okay, cool. Boom. All right, we're almost done, y'all. I probably got a couple more minutes left. About 10 minutes.
Some type of sexual activity against their will or under the influence of some controlled substance, you can try to prove that.
Now, the lawsuit alleges she was targeted, given drinks that made her disoriented and then led into a private room. Could this be prosecuted under federal conspiracy or RICO charges?
That's really difficult because under federal law for RICO.
Okay, so we're gonna let him explain this. But that was a good question she asked because R. Kelly got a RICO charge all by himself. It was nobody else inside of the R. Kelly case that got arrested with him. It was him by himself, and he got a RICO charge. So yeah.
RICO, racketeering, influence, corrupt organization. It's a higher standard to try to get that together. If you do have a case like that, well, evidentiary-wise, it's quite good for the prosecution. But this civil case, it's unlikely that that would give rise to a RICO violation.
Okay, and next, the men allegedly tried to force Jane Doe to perform sexual acts and only stopped when she allegedly loudly protested. Could this be charged as an attempted sexual assault if pursued criminally?
Well, again, we get back to the statute of limitations, and it depends on the criminal statute of limitations, not the civil. Because remember, in civil cases, many states, New York was one of them, where they changed their statute of limitations to include, alleged sexual assaults civilly from many years ago, many years ago. Criminally, it would all depend upon what that state says under their statute of limitations. So if they said, look, at the time, the statute was 5 years you have to bring a case, or 10 years, it would be totally dependent on that.
Now, Jane Doe alleges that when she was trying to leave, the men allegedly took a picture of her ID and said, quote, "Now we know who you are and where you live." Could that be considered witness intimidation?
It's only witness intimidation when there's an investigation. So, for instance, if all of a sudden this case was being investigated by New York City Police or whatever investigative agency, and then someone said, look, we know you're a witness in this investigation, and we're going to bribe you, we're going to threaten you, something like that. Sure, that is the case. But at least from what we know about these court filings, about this civil complaint, there wasn't any criminal investigation going on. So it would be difficult to show that there was some type of witness tampering.
Yeah. Well, Jane Doe claims she did not report the incident at the time because of fear. In your experience, how do courts weigh fear-based delays in reporting sexual assault?
A few things. Number one is the alleged victim has to testify. The alleged victim gets on the stand, whether it's in court or a deposition, a sworn statement, and explain why there was a delay. Second, is there any other type of evidence that could show that there was an assault? And again, any type of physical evidence, photographs, anything like that, medical documentation, something like that. And third, and this doesn't happen all the time, but on many cases, is there some type of psychological expert testimony? Meaning that, a psychologist would testify and say, look, in this situation, it's quite reasonable that this woman was under such fear going along for so many years that it's reasonable to understand why she didn't report it. And again, that doesn't happen in all cases, but in a lot of sexual assault cases, you'll have this type of expert testimony.
Now, this woman is claiming that she refused money that was offered to her before she left. Could that indicate an attempt to silence victims, and how might that be used in court?
Well, all of that is going to be relevant in court. If this case ever went to a trial and Jane Doe testified, she could tell her story. Now, there could be what's called motions in limine, where both sides try to limit the testimony or the evidence of the...
You say motions in limine, where both sides are trying to limit what I guess is coming for the forefront, but I'm gonna let them finish.
Other side, and then a judge would have to determine what is admissible or not. But for the most part, she's going to be allowed to tell her story, just like the defendant, whether the defendant is Mr. Combs or someone else. They have the opportunity as well in a civil case to tell their story.
Now, you have a lot of experience with this, and you do criminal defense as well. This question, specifically, I'm very interested in. The lawsuit claims Combs' business and security team orchestrated and enabled sexual violence. What legal strategies could the defense use to deny corporate liability?
Well, the defense could use a few things. Number one, they could say, absolutely none of this happened. Everything that she's alleging of these activities, they didn't happen. Whatever happened was consensual. Everyone knew. Everyone was partaking. So these allegations are completely false. Second, they could say this had nothing to do with the corporation. In fact, there wasn't some licensing agreement. She wasn't a performer on an album or anything like that. She wasn't signed up with the company. There was really no corporate involvement. Rather, these were just individuals. And so that's how they could try to at least set up a wall between these individual defendants if they decide to charge or, sue more people and the corporation.
So next, Combs was personally welcoming guests at the 2002 party. That is all alleged in this lawsuit, that he was allegedly personally welcoming guests at this party. Could that be used to argue that he had direct involvement in setting up the event where the assault allegedly took place?
That's going to be very fact specific. And, just because you invite people to your party, whether it's a party of 10 people or 1,000 people, doesn't necessarily mean that you know all activities that are going on at the party. So it's going to be very fact specific. And that will have to be hashed out in what's called discovery. Okay, in a civil case, both sides conduct what's called discovery. The plaintiffs say to the defendant, we want from you these documents, phone records, text records. You have to answer certain questions. Those are called interrogatories. And we're going to depose you. We want you to sit down and answer questions under oath. And the defense can do that to the plaintiff. And that all happens after a complaint is filed. Like in these cases, Jane Doe has filed a complaint. It usually will get assigned to a judge and a scheduling order will happen. Now, the defense might raise motions of dismissing the complaint and so forth. But if the case proceeds along a normal track, you will have a discovery process. And it's during that where you'll be able to get information, specific information, as to whether or not, any individual had knowledge of what was going on at these parties.
Great. And lastly, with both lawsuits painting a similar picture of coercion, intimidation, and sexual violence, how likely is it that more victims may come forward?
Well, we've already seen more individuals come forward and sue Mr. Combs. I mean, there's some reporting of who knows how many cases that we've seen in the media. So it's not a surprise that you'll get more and more people coming out. What is going to be important or very interesting to see is how does Mr. Combs handle these civil cases while his criminal case is going on? And here's why. When you are a criminal defendant, or just anybody in society, you have a right against self-incrimination. You don't have to give a statement to the police. You don't have to testify in court. You don't have to do any of that. It is your Fifth Amendment privilege not to incriminate yourself, to refuse to give a statement. And I've already mentioned about the discovery process in the civil case. So what will Mr. Combs do? I would think that the defense, at least if I were on the defense, would make a motion in court and ask for these civil cases to be stayed until the criminal case is over. Why? Because they're not going to participate in the discovery.
Wow. Okay. So he's saying basically because Diddy has criminal charges, the lawyer can actually ask for a stay, meaning that they're going to have to handle this after they do the whole criminal case, then they can sue him civilly. So yeah, this is crazy. But you see what happened with Cassie. Cassie got her money right off, and that's why everybody really just came out of the woodworks. If Diddy would have just gave her money without none of this coming to the forefront, we probably would never know about this. Between that and him suing the liquor companies, that's what really messed him up. And that tape where he was brutally beating Miss Cassie, brutally, that right there, that kind of sealed the deal. Because he's not going to be able to have a fair case after that. After that.
No, that's right.
That by participating in the discovery, it violates Mr. Combs' right under the Fifth Amendment. So that's going to be the interplay of these cases. While the criminal case is going on, what happens with the civil cases? And many times they are simply delayed or they're put on a holding pattern.
Great. Well, you know what? It seems like more information is coming out daily. More lawsuits are coming. Mr. Combs continues to deny any wrongdoings, but this is something that we will definitely be monitoring. Thank you so much, Joe.
All right, man. Y'all kicking me in the Karma Cafe. I want y'all to like, subscribe, share. Appreciate anybody who came in here. Check out the update. I think it's a more recent update that I'm gonna be able to bring out a little bit, probably a little later on tonight. Probably gonna do a couple short videos. So y'all hang in there and just like I say, like, subscribe, share, hit the notification button so y'all can get all my videos. But I appreciate y'all, man, for coming through and tapping in with me for the little time that you did. Um, hey man, I love y'all. And God love you too. And I appreciate y'all, man. Peace and one.